So first off, we didn't know how to build it when we started it, but we knew the process that would tell us how to build it. And that's exactly the way you should start. You should never be so arrogant to say, I know exactly how to solve all the problems of the world. Just listen to my brilliance. We call that a cult leader. That's not a rational project. You have to evolve and iterate and grow and be humble enough to realize that these are processes. And so the first thing we did is we said, let's just go buy up all the academic talent. So let's go hire a bunch of scientists. Let's set up a lot of research centers at different universities, and let's read everybody's paper, everybody's code, and get a really good sense of how all this stuff works. So we set up a lab at University of Athens and a lab at University of Edinburgh and one at Tokyo Institute of Tech. And we set up a lab at University of Wyoming. We hired more than 25 PhDs, and we ended up writing almost 100 papers, 95 academic papers, like probably 10,000 citations in the portfolio now. And a lot of them went through peer review at computer science conferences, which is the gold standard of the computer science field, like crypto and CCS and Eurocrypt. And basically what these papers did is they fixed a lot of broken windows, and they kind of mapped out the science of our entire space and what you can and can't do. So for example, there are global scale protocols. Google runs them, Facebook runs them, Amazon runs them, because they have billions of users. And so they need something. But the problem is they're centralized or federated, and they assume that a company owns the hardware. So how the heck do you go from that kind of stuff to something where no one's in control and it's Byzantine tolerant, meaning that dishonest actors can show up and try to break things, but they can't break it. So we had to figure out a better engine. Proof of work, for example, it's like the steam engine in the Industrial Revolution. It proved that mechanical work is better than human labor. But if we had stayed on the steam engine, we'd cut all the trees in Europe down, and it would be an ecological catastrophe, and eventually it's self-destructive. So we had to invent a better engine to run a system like this. And so people are saying, well, proof of stake is the way to go. We said, okay, well, how do we know it works? How do we know it's secure? We didn't. So in 2015, we started a research agenda. It took 6 years and lots of papers and lots of hard work to basically figure out, yes, it does work, and here's how to do it, and here's how to do it at scale. And we did this in every category, from the ledger rules, the way the network was designed, how programming languages work, and so forth. And we brought in usually the top guy in the world or the top person in the world, and we built out a beautiful framework of science. But science is not a product. So in 2017, we had a sea change in the project where we said, okay, it's fun being researchers and writing papers. I love reading them. I love writing them. It's a good thing. But we actually need to write code. We actually need to build a product, release it into the world, and build an ecosystem and community. So then we asked, well, how do we do that? So we had to find like a programming language and a programming paradigm that would give us the ability to follow the science, but also be a real product that people can use, and it's useful and it's performant and so forth. So we found a great programming language. It was called Haskell, and we followed a mechanism called formal methods, and we pulled all that together. And there was a bit of rough edges there because Haskell wasn't quite ready for an industrial product of this scale. So we actually had to improve the programming language itself, and we set up the Haskell Foundation with others. We made a lot of contributions for cross-platform compatibility, like how to get it to work on Windows and path to getting on mobile devices and so forth, getting it into the browser. It was an enormous engineering effort. It was like a Manhattan Project worth of engineering because we had to implement all this difficult science. We had to do new crypto, but then we had to also make the tools better because the tools weren't ready for prime time for what we were trying to do. And we had to launch a product into the market, compete, and so forth. So there were a lot of really hard years. I gained a lot of weight, got some white hair, some hair fell out of my head. That's always what happens when you're an entrepreneur, and constant stress. I also travel a lot. I traveled to 52 countries in 3 years, and 200 to 250 days a year, managing the business side, the community side, the engineering side, and the science side all concurrently. But we got it done. We launched Cardano in September 2017. We went through a series of massive upgrades last year, and we're doing now a series of massive upgrades this year. And we've built a community almost 1 million people strong. All of our social metrics are super strong. They keep growing every day. And there's a lot of use and utility that's coming down the pipe. At the same time, I kept saying, guys, the whole reason I'm building this is I want a global financial operating system, and I want this to be in Africa. So it's not good enough if we get like a Fortune 500 deal in New Jersey or something. No, this has to work in Ethiopia, which was another layer of problems because we're like, well, how do we do business in Africa? I'm from Hawaii. That's about as far as you can get from Addis Ababa. So we built an office in Ethiopia. We actually went and had people live in the country and train developers there. And we started business development actually all the way back in 2017. And we spent 4 years just building and learning. We started building people in Mongolia, in the country of Georgia, and a lot of jurisdictions. And it was tremendously humbling. We learned a huge amount. And now we're starting to set up all these beautiful public-private partnerships where we're working with the government, bringing millions of people through these deals into cryptocurrency. And what's great is we'll give them identities, we'll give them settlement systems, payment systems, eventually voting systems, property registration systems. So we're living the dream. And there's a bit of an inevitability behind what we're doing because there's such a strong appetite for these things. And the way we constructed Cardano as an underlying protocol, we have it all. We have a way to fund it indefinitely because of the treasury components of it. We have a decentralized brain because we embedded it within the universities. So there's all these new graduate students and postdocs that are always coming and they're always able to keep innovating. We have the right programming model that it's built on granite. So, there's no bugs or security flaws or existential protocol things that are going to blow up in your face and kill you. And we have the right marketplaces where there's a lot of young, very passionate people that want change. Like Ethiopia, 70% of the countries at or under the age of 30, most are digital. Most have cell phones. Most are online. Most are taking Coursera classes and edX classes. They bridge that gap. And they say, why doesn't my country have a better system than America? And we come and say, well, you can build it. Here's this platform to do that. So it's just, it took 6 years to do it. And it was a hell of a lot of work, but we're now just starting to see it wake up, and it's just incredibly humbling.